Senior analyst Vexstar stared at the holographic data streams floating before her four eyes blinking in rapid succession as she tried to process the anomalies. In her 3 centuries of studying emerging civilizations, she had never encountered such a baffling case. The blue-green planet designated Sol 3 defied every sociological model the Galactic Council had developed over millennia. "Computer, run comparative analysis again," she commanded, her voice betraying a hint of frustration. The crystalline processor hummed softly as it processed centuries of observational data. The results remained unchanged. Where other civilizations followed predictable patterns of unified development, the humans splintered into countless competing systems. Their technological progress occurred in chaotic bursts rather than the steady, measured pace observed in other species. Vexstar's report to the High Council would be due in 3 rotations, and she still couldn't make sense of it. The humans had progressed from primitive combustion engines to rudimentary spaceflight in less than a century, a pace that should have torn their society apart. Yet they persisted, their fragmented approach somehow driving innovation rather than collapse. She activated her neural link to the Council's secure channel. "High Counselor, I request an immediate audience. The Sol 3 situation requires direct attention." Within moments, she stood before the council chamber, its vast crystalline dome reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. 7 of the galaxy's most powerful beings regarded her with varying degrees of concern. "Speak, Analyst Vexstar." The High Counselor's telepathic voice resonated in her mind. "Your urgency suggests a significant discovery." "Honorable Council," Vexstar began, projecting her data into the chamber's shared consciousness. "The humans of Sol 3 represent a fundamental challenge to our understanding of civilizational development. They have achieved in decades what took other species centuries, and they've done so while maintaining multiple competing governmental systems." The chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief. "Impossible," declared Councillor Zinthar, his crystalline form shimmering with agitation. "No species can advance without unified purpose. The strain would destroy them." "Yet they have," Vexstar continued. "Not only have they survived, but they've thrived. Their technological progress is accelerating. At current rates, they'll achieve faster than light travel within 2 decades. The council chamber erupted in shocked discussions. FTL technology had taken most species centuries of unified effort to develop. The implications were staggering. "Show us their method of governance," commanded the High Counselor. Vexstar projected images of Earth's various political systems, democracies, autocracies, monarchies, and everything in between, all existing simultaneously on one planet. They call this international relations. Different systems compete and cooperate in complex patterns. Their global economy is interconnected, yet their political systems remain distinct. "And their military capabilities?" Councillor Mirax inquired, her bioluminescent patterns shifting with concern. "That's perhaps the most disturbing aspect," Vexstar replied. "They maintain multiple competing military forces, yet they haven't destroyed themselves. Some nations possess weapons of mass destruction, but haven't used them in over 70 years. They've developed an elaborate system of alliances and deterrence that somehow maintains stability through controlled instability." The High Counselor's form darkened, a sign of deep thought. "This defies the universal peace theory. All our models suggest that technological advancement requires unified peaceful development. Yet these humans, they're achieving progress through competition rather than cooperation." Vexstar completed the thought. "Their corporations compete to develop new technologies. Their nations compete for influence and resources. Even their academic institutions compete for funding and prestige. The result is a pace of innovation we've never seen before. This cannot be allowed to continue," Councillor Zinthar declared. "If they achieve FTL capability while maintaining such a chaotic system, they could destabilize the entire galactic order. Our member species could begin questioning the need for unified development." The High Counselor raised a tendril for silence. "We must approach this situation with caution. Analyst Vexstar, What do you recommend? Vextar had prepared for this question, though she knew her answer would be controversial. I believe we should initiate contact now, before they develop FTL capability on their own. Their pattern of development suggests they will achieve it with or without our intervention. If we engage them now, we may be able to guide their integration into galactic society and risk contaminating our unified systems with their chaos. Counselor Zinthar objected. The risk is too great. The risk of not engaging may be greater, Vextar countered. They're already detecting signals from our communication networks. They're asking questions about their place in the universe. If we don't shape their first contact experience, they will eventually discover us on their own terms. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The High Counselor's form pulsed with deliberative patterns. We will put it to a vote, the High Counselor finally declared. But first, Analyst Vextar explained the possible consequences of contact. Based on my analysis of human historical records, they will react with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and excitement. Their fragmented system actually provides an advantage. We can approach different nations separately, allowing for multiple points of contact and reducing the risk of a single catastrophic reaction. And if they prove hostile, their technology is still primitive compared to ours. We can easily contain any military response. However, I believe their reaction will be primarily driven by curiosity. They have a remarkable capacity for adapting to new situations. Their entire history is a story of encountering the unknown and incorporating it into their understanding of the world. The council members communed silently for several moments, sharing thoughts and concerns through their neural network. Finally, the High Counselor spoke. The council has reached a decision. We will initiate contact, but with strict protocols. A delegation will be sent to Earth's dominant nations. Analyst Vextar, you will lead the preliminary contact team. Your understanding of their unusual development may prove crucial. As Vextar left the council chamber, she felt both excitement and apprehension. The humans had already overturned everything she thought she knew about civilizational development. She suspected that was only the beginning of the surprises they would bring to the galactic community. What none of them realized was that humanity's capacity for adaptation and innovation would soon become the galaxy's greatest asset and its greatest challenge. The gleaming halls of the Galactic Council's embassy in Geneva stood in stark contrast to the centuries-old architecture surrounding it. 6 months after first contact, Earth was still adjusting to its new reality, though not in the way the Council had expected. Ambassador Chen Wei studied the holographic trade restrictions floating above her desk, her expression carefully neutral despite her growing frustration. The document, officially titled the Innovation Protocol, read more like a technological quarantine than a trade agreement. So let me understand this correctly, Delegate Vextar, Chen said, her voice steady. The Council wishes to restrict Earth's technological development to approved pathways, while simultaneously expecting us to abandon our current research and development models. Vextar's translator produced perfect Mandarin, but her 4 eyes betrayed her discomfort. The protocol exists to ensure stable technological progression, Ambassador. Your current methods are unpredictable. Unpredictable, Chen repeated, yet effective. Our unpredictable methods took us from horse-drawn carriages to space stations in less than 2 centuries. Which is precisely why the protocol is necessary, Vextar explained. Such rapid advancement without proper guidance could lead to catastrophic results. What Vextar didn't mention was the growing unrest among junior council species. News of humanity's rapid progress had sparked uncomfortable questions about the necessity of controlled development. 3 species had already submitted formal requests to experiment with competitive research models. Meanwhile, in a nondescript warehouse outside of Boston, Dr. Sarah Martinez was about to prove just how ineffective the innovation protocol would be. Her lab, officially registered as a consumer electronics research facility, hummed with energy as she made final adjustments to her prototype. Recording test number 47 of the quantum communication array, she spoke into her secure recorder. Integration of Centaurian crystal matrices with Earth-based quantum processors complete. Beginning power-up sequence. The device before her, cobbled together from officially approved alien technology and supposedly primitive human components, represented everything the Council feared. It wasn't just the technology itself. It was how quickly humans had learned to adapt and modify alien tech for their own purposes. Across the planet, similar scenes played out in hidden labs and unofficial research centers. The Council's restrictions had created an underground network of innovation that spread across national boundaries. Chinese quantum physicists shared discoveries with American engineers. Russian mathematicians collaborated with Brazilian programmers. The very act of attempting to contain human innovation had accelerated it. In orbit, aboard the Council's monitoring station, Alert Officer Kix noticed another anomalous energy signature. It was the 7th this week, but like the others, it vanished before he could pinpoint its location. He added it to his report, knowing it would join the growing pile of unexplained phenomena that his superiors seemed increasingly eager to ignore. Another ghost signal? Asked his human colleague, Lieutenant James Wong, manning the adjacent console. Indeed, Kix replied, his crystalline form shifting in what humans had learned to recognize as concern. They're becoming more frequent. Wong nodded sympathetically while discreetly activating the quantum-encrypted communicator in his pocket. Martinez's test had been successful. The network was growing stronger. Back in Geneva, Chen was concluding her meeting with Vextar. We will, of course, review the protocol with our various governmental bodies, she assured the alien diplomat. Though I must warn you that achieving consensus among Earth's nations takes time. Time, Vextar noted, is precisely what concerns us. Ambassador, your species moves very quickly. As if to underscore her point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the embassy. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing a massive energy surge in the Kuiper belt. Something was moving out there, something that shouldn't exist according to the innovation protocol. What is that? Vextar demanded, all 4 eyes fixed on the display. Chen's communicator buzzed with an encrypted message. Project Prometheus successful. Prototype FTL drive tested. Ready for Phase 2. That, Chen replied carefully, would be humanity demonstrating its unpredictability. The next 48 hours transformed the galaxy. News of humanity's unauthorized FTL breakthrough spread rapidly through Council space. The carefully maintained narrative of controlled technological development began to crumble. Junior species demanded explanations for why they had been held back, while humans had achieved in months what they had been told would take centuries. In an emergency session of the Council, Vextar found herself defending humanity's actions before her peers. We must understand that attempting to contain human innovation is like trying to hold back an ocean with a net. Their strength lies not in unified development, but in their diversity of approach. They have violated every principle of the innovation protocol. Councillor Zinthar thundered. They must be sanctioned. With what leverage? Vextar countered. They've already demonstrated the ability to bypass our restrictions. More importantly, they've shown us something we've ignored for millennia, that there might be other valid paths to advancement. The High Councillor's form darkened with deep thought. Perhaps it is we who must adapt. The humans have proven that our models are not as universal as we believed. As the Council debated, humanity continued its work. In labs across Earth, scientists combined Council technology with human ingenuity in ways that defied conventional understanding. The underground network of innovation had become a flood, and not even the Council could hold it back. Dr. Martinez stood in her lab, watching the quantum communication array pulse with stable energy. Her phone buzzed with messages from colleagues around the world, each reporting successful tests of their own innovations. The innovation protocol had failed, but something far more interesting had taken its place, a new model of galactic development, one that embraced diversity and competition rather than fearing it. The universe, it seemed, was about to become a much more interesting place. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen anything quite like the current session. Traditional protocols lay in shambles as species that had never dared speak out of turn now demanded to be heard. At the center of the chaos stood Ambassador Chen Wei, seemingly unfazed by the diplomatic storm surrounding her. "What you call chaos," she addressed the assembly, "we call innovation through discourse. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it's loud. But look at what it produces." The holographic display behind her showed the results of the first joint human-alien research projects. In just 3 months, human approaches to problem-solving had revolutionized fields that had stagnated for centuries. The controversial parallel development teams, competing groups working on the same problems, had produced results that defied conventional wisdom. High Counselor Zix watched from his elevated platform, his crystalline form clouded with concern. The traditional power structures that had maintained galactic stability for millennia were crumbling before his eyes. Yet he couldn't deny the results. In the diplomatic quarter of New Singapore, the changes were even more apparent. The newly established open exchange, a radical departure from traditional council protocols, hosted representatives from dozens of species. Here, there were no formal hierarchies, no predetermined speaking orders, no rigid protocols. Dr. Kaya Patel, Earth's chief xenanthropologist, observed the proceedings with fascination. A young Centaurian scientist was passionately debating quantum mechanics with a veteran Proximan researcher, their traditional status differences completely forgotten in the heat of intellectual discourse. "Remarkable, isn't it?" commented her colleague, Dr. Marcus Ruff. "They're learning to argue productively." "They're learning to be human," Kaya corrected him. "Or at least, they're learning that our chaos isn't as destructive as they feared." A real breakthrough had come from an unexpected quarter. The Andromedans, one of the oldest species in the Council, had been the first to openly embrace human diplomatic methods. Their ambassador, a being of pure energy named Zephyr, had shocked the Council by demanding the right to establish competing research institutes within their own society. "We have maintained stability," Zephyr had declared, "at the cost of stagnation. The humans have shown us there is another way." In orbit above Earth, aboard the massive Council station now nicknamed Babel for its mixture of species and ideas, Lieutenant Wong coordinated another unconventional project. The station had become a symbol of the new order, where once there had been rigid segregation of species and strict hierarchies, now there was an almost chaotic blend of cultures and ranks. "The temporal physics team needs more processing power," reported his Proximan assistant, Vix. Once a low-ranking technical advisor, Vix had proven to have a brilliant mind for theoretical physics once freed from traditional role constraints. "Divert resources from the hydroponic simulation," Wong decided. "They're ahead of schedule anyway." The hydroponics project exemplified the new approach. Instead of the Council's traditional method of perfecting each step before proceeding, human scientists had introduced parallel experimentation. Different teams tried different approaches simultaneously, sharing data in real time. The result was a hybrid growing system that combined the best elements of a dozen different planetary agricultural methods. Back in the assembly hall, Ambassador Chen was concluding her address. "We understand change is difficult. Humanity's own history is full of resistance to new ideas and methods. But look at what we've achieved together in just these few months. The quantum communication network now spans 3 galaxies. Our joint space exploration teams have charted more territory in weeks than the Council covered in decades. And most importantly, we're all learning from each other." The assembly erupted in a mixture of approving and protesting voices. From her observation post, Vextar watched with a mixture of pride and concern. She had been right about the humans' potential to catalyze change, but even she hadn't predicted the speed and scope of that change. In her private quarters later that day, she recorded her observations. "The human influence continues to spread, not through force or mandate, but through example. Species that maintained rigid hierarchies for millennia now experiment with democratic processes. Scientific institutions that once worked in isolation now eagerly seek collaboration. The galaxy is transforming, and there's no going back. A priority alert interrupted her recording. The message was brief but profound. First, joint human-Andromedan experiment successful. Stable wormhole created. Request immediate conference. Vextar stared at the message, understanding its implications. The humans hadn't just changed how the galaxy worked. They had changed what was possible. The combination of Andromedan energy manipulation and human theoretical physics had achieved something neither species could have managed alone. As she headed to the emergency conference, she passed through the station's main concourse, where once there had been ordered silence. Now there was a vibrant cacophony of dozens of species engaged in animated discussion. A group of young aliens from traditionally opposed species huddled around a human teaching them the concept of brainstorming. The galaxy was learning to embrace chaos, and in that chaos, it was finding new forms of order. Humanity's gift to the stars wasn't just their technology or their methods. It was their fundamental understanding that progress often comes from the clash of ideas rather than their careful curation. The universe would never be the same, and that Vextar realized was exactly what it needed. Admiral Sarah Martinez, formerly Dr. Martinez, stood on the bridge of the Earth-Andromedan hybrid vessel Prometheus I, watching as reality itself seemed to bend around them. The ship's quantum neural interface, a fusion of human intuition and alien technology, hummed with power as they prepared for another jump. Wormhole calculations complete, reported her Andromedan first officer, Zephyr Beta. The energy beam's form rippled with excitement, an emotion that would have been suppressed in traditional council operations. This will be our deepest push into unexplored space yet. The mission represented everything that had changed in the past year. The crew was a mixture of species that had once barely acknowledged each other's existence. The ship itself was a testament to the power of collaborative innovation, combining technologies that the Council had insisted were incompatible. All sections report ready, Lieutenant Wong announced from his station. Though engineering says the human coffee maker is straining the auxiliary power systems again. A ripple of amusement passed through the bridge crew. Another change from the old order. Humor had proven to be one of humanity's most contagious traits. "Take us in," Martinez commanded. The wormhole bloomed before them, a perfect fusion of Andromedan energy manipulation and human theoretical physics. As they passed through, however, something was different. The quantum sensors, another human innovation, screamed warnings. They emerged into a sector of space that defied their understanding. Ancient structures, larger than solar systems, hung in the void. They were clearly artificial, but showed signs of technology far beyond even the Council's capabilities. "Full scan," Martinez ordered, her scientific curiosity overtaking military protocol. "And someone wake up Dr. Patel. She'll want to see this." The xenanthropologist arrived on the bridge just as the preliminary scans came in. Her eyes widened as she studied the data. "This is impossible," she whispered. "These structures, they're older than our galaxy." But it was Wong who noticed the critical detail. "Admiral," he called out, his voice tense. "The quantum signature of these structures, it matches the anomalies we detected back when I was working on the Council monitoring station." The implications hit Martinez like a physical force. Those unexplained energy signatures hadn't been from human experiments. They had been echoes of something far more ancient and powerful. Back on Earth, the Global Science Council, another new institution born from the human-alien collaboration, was dealing with its own discovery. Dr. Roth stood before the assembled representatives, his usually calm demeanor shaken. "The patterns are undeniable," he explained, gesturing to the holographic data streams. "These ancient structures aren't just buildings, they're weapons, and according to our calculations, they're beginning to reactivate." In orbit, aboard the renamed Babel station, Vextar received the reports from both Earth and the Prometheus II. Her four eyes scanned the data repeatedly, looking for any other possible interpretation. Finding none, she opened a priority channel to all Council species, another break from tradition. "We've discovered why the Council's peaceful development protocols existed," she announced to the gathered representatives. "These ancient weapons, they're designed to detect and eliminate civilizations that reach a certain level of technological advancement. Our slow, controlled development kept us under their threshold. But now we've painted a target on the entire galaxy," Ambassador Chen finished. But rather than fear, her voice held determination. "Good thing we humans have experienced thinking outside the box." The next few weeks transformed the galaxy yet again. The Council's rigid protocols gave way completely to human-style crisis management. Multiple approaches were tried simultaneously. Every species contributed their unique perspectives and capabilities. The Andromedans provided their energy manipulation expertise. The Proximans offered their millennia of astronomical observations. The Centaurians brought their biological adaptation capabilities. And humans brought their remarkable ability to take all these pieces and combine them in ways no one had imagined possible. Martinez stood on the Prometheus Ooze Bridge again, now part of a vast fleet of hybrid vessels. Each ship represented the combined technological and cultural achievements of multiple species working together. The rigid uniformity of the old Council fleet had been replaced by a diverse array of ships, each incorporating different combinations of technologies and approaches. "Battle group reports ready," Wang announced. Though the Centaurian ships still insist on having their own coffee makers, Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Even facing an ancient threat capable of destroying galaxies, humanity's influence on galactic culture couldn't be suppressed. Perhaps that was their real strength, not just their technology or their methods, but their ability to maintain their essential nature even in the face of extinction. "All ships, prepare for synchronized jump," she ordered. "Let's show these ancient automatons what happens when you try to suppress progress." As the fleet prepared to engage an enemy that had haunted the galaxy for eons, Martinez reflected on how far they'd come. The Council's fear of chaos had nearly doomed them all. It was humanity's embrace of controlled chaos, of multiple approaches and competing ideas, that had given them a fighting chance. The wormholes opened, and the fleet jumped toward destiny. Whatever they would find on the other side, they would face it not as separate species bound by rigid protocols, but as a true galactic community, united in diversity. The adaptation effect had come full circle. The galaxy had adapted to humanity, and in doing so, had become stronger than ever before. The ancient defense system's massive structures loomed before the combined fleet, their surfaces crackling with energy that could unmake worlds. Admiral Martinez watched from the Prometheus Ooze Bridge as the final pieces of humanity's most ambitious plan came together. "All ships report ready," Wang announced, his voice steady despite the tension. "The Andromedan energy ships are in position. Centaurian biovessels have achieved synchronization. Earth quantum arrays are online." "And our guests?" Martinez asked. "The High Council representatives are secure in their observation posts," Vextar replied from her station, though some still protest this approach as unnecessarily risky. Martinez allowed herself a grim smile. When has humanity ever chosen the safe path? The plan they developed was quintessentially human, a combination of brilliant innovation, calculated risk, and what the Council species had come to call elegant chaos. Where the Council would have spent centuries studying the ancient weapons system, humanity had pushed for immediate action. Their argument was simple. The longer they waited, the stronger the automated defense system would become. "Energy surge detected," called out Zephyr Beta, their Andromedan first officer. "The system is activating its primary weapons array." The ancient machines had detected their approach, just as planned. What they couldn't detect was the true nature of their attackers. Humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy hadn't been their technology or their methods. It had been their understanding of evolution itself. "Begin Phase 1, Martinez ordered. The Andromedan ships moved first, their energy-based forms allowing them to approach the ancient weapons without registering as conventional matter. They weren't trying to destroy the defense system. They were communicating with it in its own language of pure energy. Meanwhile, the Centaurian biovessels began their own unique approach. Their ships, more organic than mechanical, presented a puzzle to the ancient sensors. They registered neither as technology nor as natural phenomena, but as something in between. Phase 1 complete, Wang reported. The system is attempting to analyze multiple forms of unknown contact. Its response protocols are dividing attention across multiple threat categories. This was the key to their strategy. The ancient defense system had been designed to detect and eliminate civilizations that developed along predictable technological paths. But humanity and their allies had become something else entirely. A civilization that embraced multiple paths simultaneously. Begin Phase 2, Martinez commanded. The Earth vessels activated their quantum arrays, creating a cascading series of reality distortions around the ancient structures. The technology was based on Dr. Patel's groundbreaking theory that the defense system's creators had never imagined a species would develop quantum manipulation alongside biological enhancement and energy-based life. They're trying to adapt, Vextar called out, her 4 eyes tracking multiple data streams. The system is attempting to rewrite its protocols. Now Phase 3, Martinez ordered. All ships, execute Operation Wildcard. This was the moment of truth. Every ship in the fleet began operating on different frequencies, using different technologies, approaching from different vectors. Some used pure energy weapons, others biological agents, still others quantum disruption fields. There was no pattern, no single point of failure, no way for the ancient system to categorize and counter them all. The defense system's responses became increasingly erratic as it tried to deal with threats that didn't fit any of its predetermined categories. It had been designed to eliminate civilizations that developed along single, predictable paths. Instead, it faced a civilization that had embraced diversity as its strength. System overload detected, Wang reported, excitement creeping into his voice. Their primary core is destabilizing. On the main viewer, the ancient structures began to pulse with conflicting energies. Their attempts to adapt to multiple threat types simultaneously had created internal conflicts in their base programming. All ships, clear the blast radius, Martinez ordered. But maintain sensor contact. I want to know exactly what happens when this thing fails. The combined fleet pulled back to a safe distance, watching as the ancient defense system tore itself apart trying to counter threats it had never been programmed to face. In its final moments, it transmitted a massive burst of data, its last attempt to understand what had defeated it. Hours later, in the aftermath of their victory, the fleet's scientific teams began analyzing the transmitted data. What they found astonished them. It's their history, Dr. Patel explained to the assembled fleet commanders. The civilization that built this defense system, they were destroyed by their own creation. They had become so focused on developing along a single, perfect path that they lost the ability to adapt. The system they created to protect their legacy ended up enforcing the same rigid development on every civilization it encountered, until it met humanity. Ambassador Chen added, a species that refused to be confined to a single path. The implications weren't lost on anyone. The Council's protocols, meant to protect developing civilizations, had nearly doomed them all by forcing them into predictable patterns of development. It had taken humanity's chaotic approach to break free of those limitations. So what now? Vextar asked the question on everyone's mind. Martinez looked out at the assembled fleet, Earth ships alongside Andromedan energy constructs and Centaurian biovessels, each contributing their unique strengths to the whole. Now, she said, we evolve, not along a single path, but along all paths simultaneously. We take what we've learned here and use it to build something new, a civilization that celebrates diversity not just in species, but in development itself. As the fleet prepared to return home, the galaxy was already changing. The Council's rigid protocols were being replaced by new guidelines that encouraged multiple approaches to development. Species that had once feared standing out now eagerly shared their unique perspectives and abilities. Humanity had proven to be more than just another species joining the galactic community. They had been the wild card that evolution needed, the chaos factor that prevented stagnation and forced adaptation. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for them all along.